In Easthampton, Massachusetts, and we're at the Main Street Cemetery, which is you might call it the oldest, but it's not really, because the two of the oldest were moved into this one. But it's a very old cemetery. It has a lot of the early settlers into Easthampton. Now, Easthampton is, by most standards, it is the youngest community in Hampshire County. So it's nothing like Hadley or Northampton or even South Hadley, so forth. This was settled permanently much later. And what we're going to do is do two sweeps around the cemetery. The inner core has a road around it, and then the outer core road will sweep around that. And we'll have different sections, and I'll explain to you. Now, it's a drive-through. If you want to see other sections, I'm making more videos and more pictures on my webpage. And also, I'm going to have a tour here in the year 2025. And you'll get to see all the little particular features about it. Now, on both sides, you see old stones. The ones on the right are mostly from, say, the 1880, 1890, 1900, 1920s. The one on the left are like from 1870s, 1880s. Right? Now, we're going to the back here in this beautiful tree-lined road. And they have an above-ground tomb. This is a building where you keep the bodies while you didn't have the chance to bury them, either in the winter or the burial was going to happen later because the person wanted the body transported out to Delaware, say. Now, a very important section, though, is in back. You notice when you get back here, all of a sudden you hit all these stones that are extraordinarily old. And so you start to think to yourself, oh, is this the old section? Well, it turns out it's not. So what I'm looking at is on the left-hand side here. I'm trying to get you centered. And this continues on this side, on the front of the old tomb, and on the back of the old tomb, on the right side of it. And this is a moved cemetery. There used to be another cemetery in town called the Old Center Cemetery. It was the oldest cemetery around in front of the Williston campus, and it was moved out here, probably because Williston wanted moved. And here it is, all nice and lined up. You should always get suspicious when you see very, very old stones all lined up in one section of a cemetery. You say, oh, moved cemetery. So this is it. Very hard to read. Some of you can read. I spent time in front of a few of them, so you can get out and read some of them. They're very old, mostly from the 1700s, some very early 1800s. So the cemetery is about 1780s up to, I think they moved it around 1850, but I want to get an exact date on that move. All right, so in front of you is a tomb. They don't use it anymore, but it's great to have around. It's a good maintenance building. And then to our left, we see the rest of the very, very old burials. Now, the first sweep around here, we're doing this inner core, so you get to see these very ancient burials. So if these are not the oldest burials in this cemetery, where are they? Well, they're mostly going to be on the your right-hand side as we go up, and especially towards the front of the cemetery. On the left are some old ones, sure, but most of those are, I would say, 1860, 1870, 1880. The most of the ones on the right-hand side are 1780s, 1790, 1800, up to around the 1840s. And they're great to see. A lot of them you still read. Some have really cool looks to them. You see this one on the right, very typical, the Clapp family, C-L-A-P-P, and I spelled it out for a reason, because in this cemetery you find Clapp families with one P and some Clapp families with two P's. And if you go searching for them, it turns out they're from different families. All right, so keep that in mind. And also, you probably notice both sides of the road and on the other road, beautiful tree-lined evergreen trees. They did a great job in making this cemetery look great, and it still is very well maintained. The roads are well paved. So we're going up through the midsection of both sides. You get to see a Revolutionary War veteran. Lots of Revolutionary War veterans in Easthampton are buried here. All right? So you can check all of them out. Now, my claim is that the very oldest burials of all are mostly on the right-hand side of what we're looking at. But when you come into the cemetery, they're on your left-hand side front. So you see them off to the sides here. Lots of them from 1790s onwards. I think this cemetery was the second oldest in town. The first one that was moved was probably only 10 years older. And they ended up moving it much later. Okay, now you also get to see in front of you the gates with beautiful white iron wrought gates, and they're repeated on the other side too. Now what we're going to do is, we did up through this inner core, we're going to do a sweep through on the outer road and talk about what's out there. And it's going to tend to be somewhat younger in some spots, but on this first sweep it's still pretty old. Now, Easthampton does have a Community Preservation Act. It doesn't seem they spent any money on preserving the stones in the cemetery. I wish they would. A lot of fallen stones, a lot of broken stones, but it deserves to be fixed up. Whenever you see a green copper emblem, it's probably a Revolutionary War veteran that's buried here. Now, the most famous person buried in the cemetery is right off to our side here. It says Williston on it. This is Samuel Williston, the founder of Williston Academy, a very exclusive private school that's located in Easthampton. He's buried here with his father, one of the founders of Easthampton, Reverend Payson Williston. And then on the front it says Williston, Samuel Williston. That was the founder of Williston Academy. And you see that it's sectioned off with these posts. You can also see that there's a Revolutionary War veteran right here. Now, right behind him is the Ferry family. And the Ferry family was one of the founders in the outskirts. They had a big farm. Now look at not only the piping around here, held up by the columns, but also look between all the piping halves, wire wrapped around it, and then it has a little bell below it. They have around here, I believe, 5, 6, 7, 9 of those. They used to have about 12. There was just 9 left. It's a chain with a little bell in it in the middle. What were they trying to do? They were probably trying to keep away evil spirits. They probably put inside those things smells, and they're trying to keep away evil spirits. But that I want to check too. When I checked them when I was outside, I didn't find any bell items inside. Maybe it rusted away, or maybe there never was one, and they were just trying to distribute smelly items to keep evil spirits under control. All right, now we're going by the tomb in the other direction. You get to see the other side of all these very early burials from the old center cemetery that was moved in here. All right, and so this is a perimeter sweep through. It's our last sweep through, and we get to see the back of the cemetery. It's not quite as beautiful with the trees and the beautiful paved road, but you get to see some very, very old stones back here, and how it borders right on to people's land. This old building you just saw doesn't even belong to the cemetery. It belongs to the family who owns the house in front. All right, now you see some nice burials through this section. These are less old. These are the burials from about 1910 up to about 1950s. And then as we work towards the front, you start to get some modern stones finally. Now this cemetery is not heavily used anymore. The Brookside Cemetery, an old, not as old a cemetery, one that was made in 1871, and that's getting most of the modern burials. But right through here, this is the cremation area. So you can buy a family plot inside here and have your family burials as cremations. So they've got original. There weren't many ordinary burials here. They became good thinkers and said, oh, maybe you should do it a modern way. And so if you look in there, there's family stones, flat stones. So if you're committed here and you want a stone, you can only buy a flat one to fit in. And so now we're going to go back to the center of the cemetery. And this is the Protestant cemetery, serving all the Protestant people and churches in Easthampton. There's all other Protestant cemeteries around, and we'll have tours in each one and videos in each one. So get into looking at all my videos through time. There's still room for growth on the other side. What are they going to do with that plot right there? Who knows? And this was a cemetery I cannot find where the Potter's Field would. It was the official cemetery of Northampton for a very long time, but I can't find a Potter's Field. It's probably mixed in somehow. I'm missing it. There's so many family stones around, and so I don't know what I'm looking at. But if I ever found out, I'll put it on my webpage. But thank you very much.